Hi, my name's Jessie, and I'm a third year Doctor of Occupational Therapy student at Drake University. I'm finishing up my doctoral capstone, and then I'll be graduating in May, so that'll be exciting. But I have a couple of resources I've kind of put in here, and also just in this YouTube playlist, including this PowerPoint, but also some videos on demonstrating some of the equipment. Um, and a lot of the equipment was either donated by Easter Seals of Iowa or we're in our OT building where we have our classes. So I tried to give kind of a variety of different ones if I could to kind of show you why you might pick one versus the other because there is a lot of options out there. Um, and I'm doing my capstone through Aging Resources of Central Iowa. So their offices are kind of in Des Moines on Grand Avenue, and they're kind of a free resource out there for older adults, either um, that are 60 and older, or they can be 18 and older with a disability. So that's kind of the age group they kind of work with the most, but they can also work with caregivers of older adults and things like that as well that I'll talk about. Um, there we go. So if you haven't heard of occupational therapy, we kind of do the more functional parts of rehab. Because if I talk about like physical therapy, I kind of tell people that they help you get from point A to point B, kind of that mobility and that movement. But we also can kind of help in that, but it's to do everyday activities. So you might be able to walk to use the bathroom or things like that. Um, Otherwise, we kind of do other things other than just like self-cares and your daily every morning, every night routines. And that includes everything that you might want or need to do in your daily or maybe even monthly in your life. So that could be cleaning your house or doing your laundry, doing yard work, things like that that you have to do, or maybe even things you want to do, like maybe leisure activities like playing games with family or um, going on a walk, doing faith-based activities, things like that. So I kind of just like to tell people what occupational therapy is because it's not always um, as well known, I would say. But sometimes somebody's had a family member or gone through occupational therapy themselves and they have a general idea of what we do too. And then this is kind of an overview of what Aging Resources of Central Iowa achieves. And so that big red number is their phone number in case anybody wants to call them to either find resources or maybe they fall into one of these groups in that yellow box where maybe they're a caregiver and they need to kind of get some assistance in the home, or maybe they are at the point where they're looking into facilities for their loved one, then that would be a good place to start because they have facility lists for different counties and kind of break down what they would require, whether it be like you have to pay private pay for a certain amount of time, or they allow or don't allow pets. So maybe it saves that caregiver a call to figure out those things and fit the facility to their loved one. Um, they can also help with the Medicaid application and kind of navigating that process, especially if somebody's looking for maybe the elderly waiver to kind of move towards maybe facility care. And then their Lifelong Links program, they have a couple of people that answer calls to kind of help either guide people in the right direction for programs that might help them, or it's mainly kind of directing people to the right route or kind of helping find things in the community because they have long lists of resources that are updated so that they can give updated contact info and things like that and eligibility requirements to make sure they're giving people the right, referrals to certain companies. Um, and then they also have an elder two elder abuse specialists. So whether that be somebody that's a victim of abuse, um, and they kind of might work with DHS and family services related to some of those cases side by side, or it could be like a scam situation and how we're going to navigate that as well. Um, and then they have a registered dietitian, Stephanie, that I've been working with closely, and she kind of does wellness programs out in the community. They're evidence-based. Like right now, she's doing some Tai Chi. Um, and she also does free nutrition counseling, whether it be a caregiver looking to make sure that their loved one gets proper nutrition, or an older adult that's hoping to make sure they're eating a well-balanced diet. So um, they have a broad spectrum of services that doesn't cover them all, but it kind of is an overview. And then Easter Seals of Iowa, if you've never heard of them, they have lots of different services for individuals with disabilities from children to adults. So, one of their biggest things is they do have an assistive technology program. And assistive technology kind of is a synonym to adaptive equipment. It's a little bit broader where it might cover more high-tech gadgets too, like maybe. Communication devices like the iPads that people can kind of tap to um, say what they want to say if they're nonverbal instead of verbally speaking it. They also have electric wheelchairs and scooters that can be refurbished and are sanitized so that somebody could use them. And so that'd be kind of more their durable medical equipment part of their assistive technology program, but I'll kind of do a little overview on those. And they also have some respite services out there where somebody could take their loved one to have somebody kind of caregive for them for a while so that they can get a few errands done, or maybe they have a weekend that they maybe need to get away. You'd have to look into that more to kind of see what days and times, but that's another thing that they offer that's really amazing for caregivers and older adults. So I kind of talked about what assistive technology is, but similar to adaptive equipment, it's anything that helps someone do a task that they otherwise could not accomplish, or even done a little bit with more ease, even. It doesn't have to be that they can't do it unless they have the equipment. It might just make it easier for their routines and their daily life as well. Um, just kind of an overview of their assistive technology program and some of the things they offer is they do have experts that can consult with someone. So Easter Seals is located in Ankeny, Iowa, and so they have some individuals that will come and like talk to someone and see what they're kind of struggling with, and then what adaptive equipment they have that might fit that need. Um, and they also have a lending library where you can try out the equipment, up to 5 pieces of equipment for 30 days, and then bring it back, and they can kind of figure out, okay, this worked, maybe this didn't work. Where could you purchase that out in the community, or where funding options would be to obtain it if somebody can't buy it outright. Um, and they have a really big warehouse full of adaptive equipment. They have a lot of donations, so their warehouse has a lot of variety. So that's why I try to steer people to them first, because I do have kind of a system down and do get a lot of the donations for equipment. But yeah. And then another thing they have is a rural solutions program. So that's really good for Iowa. We have lots of farmers. So if somebody is a farmer with a disability, or and a disability could even be aging and that they're limited that way, then they can kind of see how eligible you would be to take advantage of that program to kind of either get adaptive equipment to continue farming, or change your home so that you can stay where you're at, hopefully. And then it also is eligible for anyone, any Iowan that is in a city that's 2,500 or less population. So kind of those rural areas that might have a smaller population and less access maybe. And then finally, the biggest thing that I like about them and aging resources is that if they don't have the answer or they can't help, then they will refer you to someone that can, so that you're not kind of left with no answers. You at least have somewhere else to go, to get what you need, which is important. And so these are just some examples of assistive technology. So a fingernail clipper, that one has suction cups underneath that table or under that plate so that it won't move around and somebody can kind of use their hand to touch the top of the nail clipper and clip their nails. They do kind of need the, dexterity and movement of their other hand to, bring it up and into the nail clipper. But then at least maybe they've had a stroke or something where they can't really pinch a nail clipper like it would be used normally, then you can kind of use your whole hand instead. That sand timer is kind of shown with a little kiddo, but it could be also used, I think, for anyone with maybe impulsivity or even a little bit of memory issues where it kind of is a reminder for them as they're eating or doing a sitting activity, maybe that, okay, we need to sit for this amount of time as a visual aid, maybe. But it probably could be used for different games and like movement as well of the wrist if somebody maybe just needs a fidget too. That rolling garden cart, I'm not sure if that little pedal on the left is for it to lock, but somebody would have to be pretty safe and squatting down on this if it doesn't lock. If it does, then awesome. But there are also other options out there, like there's little foam pads that you can get at even like Dollar Tree to put down and kneel on if somebody wants to garden, but maybe it hurts their knees or their joints to kind of kneel down on the hard ground. There are also ones that have like a foam pad and then there's little arm rails that come up so that somebody could push up to stand from that low position instead of having to, bend down, push up, or have something there to kind of pull themselves up from the ground. And then that talking pedometer would be for someone that might be maybe vision impaired. And so it would talk to them to tell them how many steps they've taken so that they can kind of track that, um, whether it be like the distance to where they need to go, or maybe it's just exercise and keeping track of their steps too. And then there's adaptive gaming tools out there. Those are just a few of them for somebody that might be seated in a wheelchair, but there's also ones that maybe they can't use their fingers to do those, really fine movements, but they can stand and shift their weight. There's like Wii Sports games and different games that like they use your weight shifts or your movements of your torso to kind of allow someone to engage in the gaming without using fine movements in your fingers or your hands. And then that USB chargeable exam reader could be used for an exam or it could be used for like a doctor's office handout or maybe discharge paperwork if somebody is vision impaired, or maybe they just didn't bring their readers that day. Maybe it might be helpful to kind of scan over that text and it reads it aloud or it reads it out on that pen in a higher contrast than maybe the black text on the white paper. Um, those are a couple $100 when I looked it up for someone out in the community. So another alternative would be that there are apps out there for your phone now. I think Speechify is one of them where you can just scan it with your phone and then it says it aloud. But I know not everybody has a smartphone, so it might be helpful to look into funding options for this. I know some blind programs out in the community, they even help individuals with low vision, even if you're not legally blind, to kind of help fund some of that equipment, especially if it helps them get back to work or things that they need to do. So. And so I kind of talked about the lending library that Easter Seals has. So you would be able to loan 5 pieces of equipment and then for 30 days, and then you bring it back. But one thing that's nice is that they do have an online inventory. So if somebody's looking for something specific, then they can go in there and see if they have it before they have to make a call or something like that. They are free to call as well, but maybe somebody like a caregiver wants to look it up ahead of time just to save them a little bit of time for searching for this type of stuff. Another thing User Steals offers is an assisted technology exchange. So that's kind of like a Facebook marketplace for adaptive equipment. They just provide the platform. They don't get any of the purchasing profits or anything like that. It's literally just the website that they put together so that people can also sell instead of just donate their equipment because it is expensive and sometimes people, um, if they aren't using it anymore, you might as well get a little bit out of it sometimes. So otherwise, they also have a durable medical equipment program. So that involves a one-time fee that they kind of set. So like a edge of tub bench, which I'll kind of show later on in the presentation, that would be about 35 bucks at Easter Seals according to their fee. They have a PDF on their website that has all the fees and how much it would cost to get a hospital bed, to get different shower chairs, to get a power chair or a ramp, things like that. And then you can use the equipment for as long as you need. So the one thing that's with this though is that you have to have a form that either has a doctor's signature or a rehab professional's signature, just because they don't want to give out maybe a power chair to someone that might not have either the house set up to use it effectively or might not be safe to use an electric wheelchair. We don't want them to hurt themselves or possibly hurt others with it. So that's the only reason that that's in place. But and kind of the whole spark behind this project is both my grandparents on both sides are in rural homes that are not very accessible. And neither one really has a grand amount of money to make these huge house changes that maybe um, would make it accessible, but might not be the most feasible for them to make as they're trying to also live in their home and do their things. So, aging in place, it's pretty much just being able to live in someone's home, whatever home may look like, for as long as possible, safely and comfortably. So, home could be a house, it could be a condo, apartment, or even in a long-term care facility because some people they do appreciate being in independent living or assisted living, so on because they don't have as many responsibilities like cleaning or maybe they get a couple meals a day or every meal made for them so that they have that kind of burden or that part of their routine taken care of and it's a lot more easy for them to do the things that they want to do. Um, so aging in place can be anything. So that's why I kind of like to focus on the adaptive equipment part of it a little bit more because then people can hopefully adapt their home to be accessible without as many grand changes to their home. But sometimes we're still required to change stairs or change how our bathroom setup is to make sure that it's safe and somebody can be independent. So I'm not saying that you can't do it without anything, but it might give a bridge between that. I do include a couple home modifications in my presentations out in the community. So uh, I know a zero entry design where there's no stairs to enter the home or within the home is not always feasible. Um, but I like to put it there in case somebody is building or they're looking to kind of downsize their home, maybe it's a good thing to look for um, if they are wanting to age in place for as long as possible, just so you don't have any limitation of stairs. Otherwise, if somebody can't do that. Even just looking at installing handrails or making sure that the width and the height of your stairs is safe. If you have very steep stairs or very narrow stairs, it's going to be a lot harder for you to be steady on those as we age and kind of might decline in our balance, or sometimes different medications kind of cause uh, dizziness and things like that that might create a safety hazard on certain steps. Adding like a non-slip tread can be helpful, especially if we do have steep steps. And with just Iowa weather, having ice and snow, that kind of creates a fall hazard. And then reducing door thresholds. So a lot of times, when we're talking about steps with people in an evaluation, we have them tell us how many steps are up to their door. But then we also ask, is there a threshold between your top of your stairs and your door? Maybe it's this. And so we're like, okay, that's another step then that you have to take to get in your home. Or maybe the threshold on your door is just a little bit bigger, where then it does kind of require you to step up. So we kind of count that as a step as well. And then proper lighting both inside and outside the home, because that is a big fall risk, is when we can't see what's in front of us, or maybe we can't see the ice at night when it's like black ice. So having that lighting to kind of help us prevent a fall is very helpful. And then even if we can't get rid of our stairs, maybe we could install a ramp. I know Next Day Access is a company that will do free estimates, kind of in the Des Moines area, and maybe a little bit of the surrounding areas as well, so that somebody could know at least how much it would be for you to get a ramp installed, so that you kind of know how much the rent for that would be, in case you do have an injury or something down the road, then you know how much it is. And then more for like the kitchen and like living area, um, level and non-slip flooring is a big thing. If we have like multiple, I know there's some living rooms where you have the kitchen hard floor and then there's a step down to the living room. Or we have sometimes where the flooring is like a lighter color. I know my parents put in some lighter colored tile, and so when we spill water on that, I don't always notice it until I accidentally step in it. So that like darker wood flooring might be a little bit higher contrast, so that somebody with lower vision or even normal vision can see spills and hopefully prevent a fall. Um, and then for heights of countertops, usually we try to reduce those to 34 inches or less, if possible. If somebody's building, that's kind of something we look at. Because then if somebody does have to sit to do cooking, or um, anything in their living room or things like that, then they can reach those things without, torquing their shoulder too much, and being able to see what they're doing up there. Sometimes we can just move things to a kitchen table that's a little lower, but if somebody's cooking and things, they might want that counter space to be a little lower so that they can reach it if they are sitting to cook for most of that activity. Um, Rounded countertops are just more to prevent catching on people's skin, and if somebody were to fall. Workable counter space by the oven so that somebody can put a heavy pan on the countertop right away instead of having to, carry it across. Some people, they, slide things across their countertop, whether it be groceries or things like that that are heavy. So we can kind of adapt the way people do things too. It doesn't have to be like adaptive equipment, or home modifications, but they're just small things like that. And then appliance height and controls. So that would be like your oven. If your oven controls are across the stovetop, if you were to have to sit for cooking for a while, whether you aren't supposed to bear weight into a leg or something like that, then you it would be nicer for your oven controls to be in the front, for both the stovetop and the oven, hopefully, so that you wouldn't have to reach over or stand up to reach over the stovetop. Heights of sofas, chairs, and beds are a big thing. A lot of times, either the sofa kind of sinks down, and so then people can't get out of it as easily, or a lot of times beds can sometimes be almost too tall if somebody has like a bed frame that's higher up. I know even my roommate from college, I went to visit her at her apartment, and she's probably 5'5", and her bed is like up to my hips, and I'm about 6'1". So I was like, how do you get in this bed? Like you have to hop in there really good to get in your bed. So things like that, so that somebody, if they do happen to have, a fall and hurt their leg or things like that, then they can get in and out of bed um, easier. And then having chairs with arms is always a big thing to help somebody get out of a lower chair. And usually we prefer that they don't have wheels. So I know there's some kitchen chairs maybe that have wheels on them. Um, a lot of times we'll recommend that people get ones without so that it doesn't fly out from under us as we go to sit down. And then pretty common, but eliminating or even just fastening rugs or reducing clutter and cords near doorways can kind of help reduce falls. So. And then more for the bathroom. Grab bars and shower chairs are like the biggest things we kind of recommend. If somebody is starting to have issues with their balance, or maybe they get kind of tired easily when they're standing and doing like extraneous activities like giving themselves a shower. Um, Otherwise, we can sometimes just do like toilet height maybe needs to be a little higher, things where they're getting from a low surface. So a raised toilet compared to ADA guidelines is between 17 and 19 inches. So if you go and look for like a raised toilet out in the community, it's usually between that range. Um, Again, looking at the vanity height, if it's less than 34 inches, then it's a little easier for someone to sit and kind of wash their hands or wash their face, brush their teeth at their sink while seated. And then the biggest thing is door width. So I know a lot of bathrooms, their doors are a little bit more narrow. So then we kind of have to look at if somebody, maybe they broke their ankle and so they're using a wheelchair short term to be more independent with mobility because they're not supposed to put weight on that ankle. And they get tired kind of using the walker all the time and balancing on one foot. Then maybe we have to look at the door width to see if that wheelchair is going to fit through their doorway for them to also toilet, or if they will have to use the wheelchair to the bathroom and then the walker to turn and sit on the toilet and things like that. So 32 inches is like ADA compliant doorways, but that's not always feasible for someone's home. So 27 inches is about the width of a standard walker, like a walker with just the front wheels, not the ones with the seat in them. But that way, if somebody were to have to use a walker short term or things like that, then their doorways might be wide enough for that, but maybe not a wheelchair. So, in case somebody's ever looking to do that to their home, then that's kind of a guideline we follow. A handheld shower head is always helpful, but not always necessarily required for accessibility, though it does quite often help if we're using a shower chair. Having maneuverability space, excuse me, to kind of turn a walker or uh, have enough space to move between the shower and the toilet or the toilet and the sink. And if you have a caregiver, room for them to help you in case they have to for some reason after an injury, making sure that there's enough space for them to kind of move around with you and keep you safe as well. And then having a vanity next to the toilet is pretty common, so sometimes we'll use that instead of a grab bar if that's feasible for someone. But sometimes we do need the grab bar or something else to kind of assist someone from getting off that low surface. And then manageable sink faucets kind of goes with the counter height. A lot of times, even if we are able to sit and reach, the water doesn't come towards us enough. So there are little plastic attachments that kind of they have a little hole that slides over the sink faucet, and so then it kind of funnels the water towards the person to be a little bit closer. So sometimes we can just do that if they're sitting to do their morning routines at the sink, but maybe their vanity doesn't have space underneath for them to get their feet up close in a wheelchair or a chair. Um, so yeah, there's different things we can do for that too, other than changing your sink faucet. Then these are more overview things like if we can, we like to have laundry and all the activities of daily living, like being able to dress yourself, bathe yourself, um, feed yourself, go to the kitchen, all on the same floor without use of stairs. But I know that's not always the case. I know there's a lot of split level homes out there. Um, and then proper lighting. So a lot of times we'll run into houses sometimes where the light switch is on the opposite side of the room. So then you have to walk through a dark room to turn on the light. So sometimes we'll just put a lamp inside the doorway, or if somebody's open to getting a smart home or they already have an Alexa and they want to get a smart home set up, sometimes we can set up that to be like, hey, Alexa, turn on the light. And it will do that for them so that they can safely walk through. Otherwise, just a lamp inside the doorway is sometimes enough for them to safely get to the light switch and turn it on. Um, Otherwise, making sure their phone is accessible or they have like a life alert or a personal emergency response system if they are a frequent faller or maybe they don't feel as steady kind of doing showers maybe and they can't bring their phone in there with them, then maybe that would be a good option because a lot of them are waterproof. Um, there are automatic shut-off appliances out there, and then a fire extinguisher and a smoke alarm just for fire safety in the home is really important too. These are just some different checklists that are out there to kind of look at how you can make your house more accessible or decrease fall risk. The AARP has a big PDF that you can kind of fit your home to whatever guide you want. So there's a smart home one. But if people don't want the smart home version, they can also just do like a fall prevention one. So you kind of can fit it to whatever needs you want. And then the AOTA is like our National Occupational Therapy Association. They kind of posted up a like a home safety checklist that commonly occupational therapists use. And so we'll kind of use that to go into someone's home and make sure that it's accessible and it's safe for them to return home and making sure if they are going to use a wheelchair, is it safe to use a wheelchair, things like that. Um, and then that last one is more for videos related to some of this stuff. It's not as broad and it's not as detailed, I would say, than the other ones. But if in case somebody just has time for a short video, then that might be more feasible. And so I'm going to kind of go over the adaptive equipment side now. I am not going to demonstrate these items on this video, but I have created demonstration videos that I'll put in this YouTube playlist. So for the sock aid, I have also made one for a compression sock aid because a lot of times I'll demonstrate how this works in the community and then I get questions about would this work for compression socks because I know that is a big limitation for people's independence. And so I put like a in the sock aid video, there's a compression sock aid as well that I showed. Otherwise, sometimes we can use a grocery bag to kind of put a small hole at the bottom of the grocery bag to at least get it over someone's toes, maybe. But they do have to be able to kind of reach down farther to get it over their toes still. So if they have hip precautions or something where they can't bend down, that might not be the best option. Um, but just so you have them out there. So a sock aid more helps you put on your socks. So if somebody, like I said, has precautions where they can't reach down, or maybe mobility wise, they can't reach down with ease to their ankles or their feet, then we can use some of these sock aids to help kind of make their routine a little bit easier. So this is like a standard one, but there's also ones that come out in a rectangle more and less of like a curve or a circle. So those ones that come out a little bit more in a rectangle are more for those with lower leg swelling, um, to kind of allow for that extra space needed, if their calves are a little bit more swollen or things like that. Sorry, I just dropped my phone. So that can be an option. I also show how you can put on a sock with a towel. So that would be less for someone that might have like severe swelling in their lower legs, because I kind of have to point my toe down pretty far for that towel technique. So that's the one thing I kind of warn with that. It's not always easier, but I know there's a lot of stigma about this equipment, and sometimes people are still really against using it, which is their prerogative, and we're going to be client based and make sure that we're meeting their goals how they want to meet them. So sometimes I'll use that towel trick if somebody is against using the sock aid, and see what works easier for them so they can kind of test out both. And then because that sock aid only really helps you put on your sock, sometimes we'll run into individuals that can't take their socks or their shoes back off. So either they kind of find their own problem-solving techniques, like using the carpet to kind of create friction on their foot and take their sock off that way, or they can use this dressing stick. So there's little L hooks on one side of the dressing stick, and then there's a little, almost like a fishing hook on the other side. So we can use this for both helping put on your socks. I try to find ones that have that rubber coating on both sides, like on both hooks. Sometimes the fish hook one will come in like a silver metal, and it will usually put a hole in someone's sock if they try to, use that to get over their heel. Like maybe they used the towel technique and they only got it over their toes. They didn't get it over their heel like they wanted. Then the coating kind of helps them hook the sock without, putting a hole in it. Sometimes we can also use that left side of the L hook to kind of point it downwards so that we can kind of hook the heel of the sock and pull it on, or to pull it off. Because if we kind of push that down by where our ankle bone is, right behind our ankle bone, where kind of our Achilles tendon is, there's a little crevice there in our ankle already. So if we kind of glide it down the side of, like the inside of our ankle, excuse me, then it can kind of take off our sock with a little bit more ease than maybe trying the back of our heel. And then I show in the demonstration video for the dressing stick how to use this for maybe a shoulder issue as well. So if somebody's maybe had a rotator cuff tear, or they have precautions after a heart surgery where they're not supposed to lift their arms a certain amount, then we can kind of use that to pull the shirt over their head if they have like a pullover shirt that they like wearing, to be more independent but not have maybe the pain or breaking precautions that they shouldn't after surgery. And then finally, there's a picture on here of somebody using it to put on a jacket, or it could be a cardigan too. The one thing is that you kind of have to have, you can either do it up by the neck, like she's doing, where you don't need as much rotation, but usually you need at least one shoulder that can kind of rotate back to get into the jacket, because even if she pulls it over to her shoulder, she kind of has to still rotate back and rotate her shoulder to get her arm into it. So a lot of times we'll have someone put on their more painful side, or the side that can't move as well first. and then use the dressing stick with their good arm to kind of bring it around or bring it around under their armpit and get their arm into it. So it takes a little bit of practice. I know in the video it takes me a little bit longer to do because I don't do that on a daily basis, but I bet somebody could get it down quicker once they've done it a couple times. And then a reacher or a grabber can be really common for people to have just to get items off the floor safely. Um, but it can also be used for helping get pants around someone's ankles or for grabbing items off the top shelf in a kitchen without getting on a step stool. So a lot of times OTs will look at how we can kind of change things in people's cabinets too, so it's safer to prevent falls and also to be able to cook with greater ease and not have to worry about grabbing items. So let's say you put your lighter boxes on the top shelf where you can reach with this grabber, and then your more heavier jars or more commonly used items on the lower shelves, or the shelves underneath your cabinet or your countertop so that you could sit to grab those and put them on the countertop without having to get on a step stool to grab a heavy jar, things like that. Um, Another way we can use this is for laundry because sometimes we'll have individuals that have a top loading washer, and so it's kind of hard to get those items that kind of stick to the bottom of the barrel. And so sometimes this can help. I'm not going to say it's easy and that you can grab a whole load of laundry with it, but it might help someone be more independent. It might take them more time, but it might give them their independence if they don't want somebody else to do their laundry for them or things like that. And then this button hook can be helpful if somebody struggles with maybe buttoning their shirts or a blouse, maybe. The one that I have in the video also has a tiny hook, like a tiny fishing hook on the opposite side, so that somebody could use that for zippers. So I had a gentleman in the community that said that he uses it for zippers and for buttons because he had limited dexterity in his hands, and he's was very happy with it. Um, but I know sometimes people also struggle with coordinating this as well. So sometimes they'll just move to buying shirts that are magnetic. So there are shirts out there that I'll kind of show in a picture in a second about they have the outside visual appeal of a button down, but they kind of snap together with magnets. So that might be easier for someone if they maybe don't have I had a gentleman that didn't have his index fingers, and so doing even this button hook was kind of hard for him to coordinate and do it smoothly. And it kind of took me two hands in the video to do it quickly because I had to put the button hook through the hole, grab the button, and then kind of hold the part where the buttonhole is so that it wouldn't move around and pull it through. So sometimes you need that second hand to kind of stabilize the shirt for it to go quicker and maybe the button not to flop the wrong way, things like that. Um, but yeah, this might be a cheaper option if somebody does uh, maybe not want to buy a bunch of $60 shirts that have magnets in them, but sometimes that might be worth it to someone that wears them a lot and needs to be more independent in their daily life. So. And then this is a shoehorn. So most people know what like a shoehorn is generally, but then there's also ones that are extended like this. A lot of them have like a little hook at the end that somebody can hold on to. Either they're plastic or sometimes I've seen like those hooks that are covered in leather so that it's a little bit easier to grip and your hand doesn't slide off of it. I show one in the video of a telescoping shoehorn, so it kind of reduces in size and can stretch out too, to fit the individual or to be travel friendly. And then the metal end kind of bends around so that it's not, it kind of moves with you as you're pushing your heel down versus kind of getting stuck and requiring you to kind of move the top of it around a little bit. Um, so yeah. And then this is the adaptive clothing I was talking about. So the hidden magnets in that top shirt is the ones that I was kind of talking about. I think I've seen them on Kohl's online for like $60. They used to be like 100 or more. So at least it's kind of universalized where the price has reduced slightly. Um, but I get that's not still feasible for someone to get a whole wardrobe of these. But maybe they just wear dress shirts once in a while and it's still a hassle, so then they have this as an option. Otherwise, if it's more zippers that are the issue, then you can buy these zipper rings in like packs of I don't know how many it is, but it comes with a couple so that you can snap the zipper ring into the hole of the zipper on all of your zippers because it comes in a pack of them. And then you have that ring to hold on to instead of that tiny little zipper handle that might be hard for people to pinch or manipulate, especially if they have like neuropathy where they can't really feel where they're kind of grabbing. Um, or maybe it's just hard for them, like painful with arthritis or things like that. There are front clasping bras, which are really awesome, especially if somebody is only able to really manipulate things with one hand, maybe after a stroke or things like that, then they can kind of um, take apart and put on their bra a little bit easier with one hand. And then there are these straps out there to help people put on their pants from the ground if they struggle with reaching down um, to put their feet or their legs through their pant legs. Most of the time, if somebody's struggling with that, they already have a reacher or a grabber to help grab items off the floor. So we'll just kind of use the reacher or the grabber because that's already equipment they have. Otherwise, this kind of looks like suspenders to me, so I would just have them buy suspenders, or if they already have suspenders, maybe, and pre-fasten them and use them in the same fashion, but not buy a strap that's maybe marketed towards it because then it might be more. Um, but that's just my kind of creative spin on it. And then more towards adaptive bathing, there's these shower benches out there that they have like holes for your hands, but not necessarily like arms. And a lot of times their base of support is a lot narrower. So most of the time we won't recommend one of these shower benches. Um, and instead we'll recommend either a shower chair that has arms on it. So you still can raise it up, you still can sit down or stand up during your shower. But then if somebody were to sit down on this quickly, it's less likely to tip over because it has a wider base of support. And they still have the arms to reach back and grab to kind of get themselves lined up quickly if they do, get tired or they feel like they're losing their balance. And so this would be more for like a walk-in shower um, versus a tub just because of space requirements. But if somebody has a bathtub, then this is more what we'd recommend because it would go over the tub ledge and the two legs on the right would come over the edge so that somebody could sit down on the outside of the shower facing um, straight ahead, and then they'd kind of twist their hips and turn to bring their legs into the bathtub. So I kind of show in the shower chair YouTube video how this works, and I demonstrate how to kind of bring your legs in safely. The one thing is somebody would be required to have the hip and knee mobility to bring their legs over the tub ledge. Sometimes you can get like the cutout tub ledges that might make it easier if somebody can't do that, but they want to be more independent, so they might just get a tub ledge cut out that has like the door that swings in and out so that they can get their feet in, close the tub ledge, but still use this type of shower chair. And so hopefully the whole point is that somebody could sit down for the entirety of the shower with like a handheld shower head and bring their legs back out over the tub ledge, hopefully without having to stand on the wet shower floor. But sometimes we can't reach certain places or we can't really torque to get where we need to go. So sometimes we'll just put down a non-slip mat and somebody can stand up for short periods to get certain parts of their body. So. And then more for like grab bars, there's standard ones out there that install via studs, which most people know. I try to show these pictures of continuous ones because sometimes they'll just have the horizontal or the vertical installed, but there are ones that are continuous too in case somebody's, inching their hand up as they kind of stand. Otherwise, there are the suction cup ones out there. The one thing I warn with these is that they hold about only 25% of your body weight. So if you are pretty steady, but maybe just occasionally, if you're, washing your feet standing up, and need to balance yourself lightly, um, like just kind of standing and stabilizing here and there, then it's okay. But if we were to fall and we grab onto that, that's more than likely going to pop off the wall. Or if somebody's sitting on a shower chair and they go to grab that and pull up, then they're more than likely going to pop it off the wall too. So we don't want it to cause a fall either. I know they are cheaper and easier to install, and they don't put holes in your wall. But an alternative that we'll kind of recommend if people still don't want to kind of put holes in their wall, but they really need it to steady themselves, is a tub safety rail. You would need a bathtub setup for this, but then somebody would just these plates kind of cinch around the tub ledge, and then you would be able to use that either if you put it, it should be more towards the head of the shower where the shower head is, or towards the end. I wouldn't put it in the middle because then your foot would likely catch on it as you're stepping over the tub ledge. But if somebody put it more towards where the shower head is, then maybe they could use it during the shower too to kind of hold themselves. Otherwise, it's mainly used for someone to get over that tub ledge safely without having to hold on to like a slick wall or something like that. These are some other grab bar options out there. I had a wife out in the community that was worried about her husband standing up from their stool using their paper dispenser that is not installed via studs. And so she was like, he's really against grab bars still. Is there anything that's like a combination of a toilet paper dispenser and a grab bar? So I kind of did a little bit of research and found these three as options and kind of just emailed her links, and then she did with it what she will. Most of them were 300-pound weight capacities. So, but they were installed via studs in the wall. So she would have had to install them via studs, but um, it at least doesn't have the visual appeal of maybe a grab bar that her husband might not be as willing to use safely. So that was an option for her. Otherwise, there's tension rods out there, like the one on the far right, that go between the floor and the ceiling so that somebody could maybe put it between their toilet and their shower and have a way to, grab onto something safely to get in and out without a grab bar installed to the wall. And then most people know what a handheld shower head and a long-handled sponge are, but I like to include them mainly to say that a long-handled sponge can also be used for our lower legs and our feet so that we can sit down and do our shower routine safely, as well as our back. So I know the back is kind of the more common one that people use it for, but also your lower legs and your feet if somebody isn't as safe to lean forward and do that independently. And then the handheld shower head can be helpful, and there are like fasteners that you can put so that it's not, say your handheld shower head is up where a normal fixed shower head would be. There are things that you can fix to your wall if you use the shower chair to put it closer to you, so that you don't have to stand up to grab it and set it down so many times during the shower. So I just like to let people know that there's ones out there that you can put on the wall and move closer to you. And then more for toileting, I showed how to install one of these raised toilet seats in the toilet riser video. So this one, it has a little dial in the front that you can see that kind of spins around, almost looks like an oven timer. And so it has a little plate inside of it that cinches to the toilet and makes it tight to the toilet so that it won't move around. I show one in the video that we have in our OT building that it doesn't have that cinch. It just has like non-grip slip stickers. And so that one does kind of slide around. So that's why I kind of prefer this one because you can cinch it to the toilet size. You put the toilet seat up and then you put that on top and cinch it so that it's tight to the toilet. There are ones that come with arms on them, like the one in the video, um, in case somebody finds that helpful as well. Otherwise, sometimes we'll take them off if somebody's hips are maybe a little wider, where then it's not as comfortable for them to use the toilet with that. Otherwise, if it's just maybe short term or maybe somebody doesn't have someone to kind of install that for them safely, then we can use maybe a commode and take the bucket out and put it over the toilet. Um, so there's standard commodes like this, or there's ones that are called bariatric commodes that have like a whole seat and then the hole for the toilet. So it's kind of like a big um, it's similar to the edge of tub bench where it's a longer seat on both sides. So that might be easier for someone to comfortably use the toilet because I know the standard one has a very small seat. But again, those bariatric ones are probably going to be more, so that's sometimes a limitation for individuals. And then the toilet safety frame kind of installs behind the toilet seat lid. And so that would just kind of give somebody the use of their arm strength to push up to stand from that low stool. Or maybe they have a raised toilet and it's still is difficult for them to do that, either pain-free or uh, in general due to strength or mobility. So then that can give them the use of their arm strength as well to kind of get up from that low surface, hopefully more independently. These are some other options for the toilet and or shower. I put that first one in there more for caregivers because I'm a CNA at a nursing home, and I know that that would maybe save both the person I'm caring for the energy of getting up multiple times if they do get tired really easily, or also for the caregiver and preventing them from having um, as much fatigue or maybe back pain or whatever from getting between surfaces. That way they don't have to transfer them multiple times. They can slide them between, or maybe during showers or things like that, they really have to go to the bathroom sometimes. Then that would be an easy, quick, that you slide them over. They just have to move their legs over the tub ledge to get in between surfaces. And then the other two are just different alternatives to either toilet safety frames or a commode. There are padded ones out there like this, but they also are usually more expensive because of the padding. So I just like to give other options because I know not the unpadded ones aren't the most comfortable for certain individuals, especially if they have pain in their hips or things like that. And then if somebody struggles with cleaning themselves up after toileting and they want to be more independent with that, then we have different tools that are out there, whether it be toilet tongs or a toilet aid or even a bidet. Sometimes a bidet is a more feasible option for folks. Otherwise, if it's just short term, maybe they have precautions where they can't move their shoulder a certain way or something like that. There also are in that top or bottom right a portable bidet set. So that one's electric, but there are ones that are just like a squirt bottle for like postpartum care. That could also work for someone maybe to be more independent with cleaning themselves with maybe their non-dominant arm if they've had a shoulder surgery or something like that. Um, And then this is more for the bed. So there is a under mattress bed rail, and there's other options on the right there. I don't really like the one in the middle on the right, just because somebody would have to put it really high up on the head of their bed and kind of reduce the width of the arm rail so that they wouldn't be, restrained into their bed. I wouldn't want anyone to feel like they are stuck in their bed because of that bed rail. But there are other options out there, like that cane handled one might be easier for someone, or maybe that more medical looking bed rail. might be easier too. And I think some of them they fold out of the way too. So maybe if just a loved one comes, that might be easier for it to fold out of the way. But the under mattress bed rail, a lot of time we'll look for ones that have a strap that goes from the part that goes under the bed all the way around the bed frame so that it doesn't slide around too much and it's kind of more secured because sometimes it will kind of slide out under the mattress with different movements or if our mattresses are a little thinner. Another option is that installed bed rail. So that one clips down. Again, I would put it more towards the head of the bed so that somebody's not restrained into their bed. But in case you have a family member, again, that maybe visits and they would benefit from that, but you maybe don't want it out all the time or even just for ease, someone like a caregiver that needs the bed rail to kind of get their loved one off the bed, but they also need to make the bed. So sometimes clipping that down out of the way makes it easier for you to make the fitted sheet or whatever. Um, Little considerations like that. There, if anybody struggles with bed mobility, there are trapeze bars out there that kind of they either have a stand that goes under the bed and comes up over someone, and they either have like a triangle or a rectangle bar that you can grab onto and pull yourself up. So that would be if somebody has a lot of tightness in their lower legs where maybe they can't bend their knees enough to help bridge themselves up for either a caregiver or just moving themselves up in the bed or repositioning or whatever it may be. Um, Otherwise, I've seen bed sheets out there that I think are marketed towards individuals with Parkinson's, but they're fitted sheets that have like a square of silk on the where everybody's hips would be in the bed. It's not on the very edge of the bed, which I appreciate, but it's just where their hips would be in the center of the bed so that when they're repositioning in the night, then it's less friction on their pajamas or whatever clothes they're wearing, versus like a fleece sheet might be more difficult for someone that has a weaker core or is already struggling to kind of move around, in the bed. Then that would kind of decrease the friction and hopefully allow them to move around a little better. But the one thing I kind of caution with that is it does go enough out to the edge of the bed that if somebody were sitting on the edge of the bed and they're not safe on the edge of the bed because they kind of slip off sometimes, um, then maybe that wouldn't be the safest option because that silk might also decrease the friction they have, as they're sitting on the edge and might slip off and fall. So we want to be careful about that. But if they are safe once they're on the edge of the bed, and they just struggle with kind of moving around in the bed, then that might be a good option. And then more for cooking. I have a rocker knife. In the video, I kind of show how that works, but it pretty much just rocks back and forth to cut the food. But it allows you to use your whole grasp instead of using a like finer grasp that we use when we use a steak knife. That easy grip knife is a little less commonly found, but it has a similar concept where you can use your whole grasp and it puts your wrists in a more neutral position. So, if somebody maybe struggles with carpal tunnel or something like that, where they have pain in their wrists or their fingers, this might be a more comfortable position for them to still cut food items. And then if we're looking more at maybe somebody doing one-handed cooking, that's why I put that adaptive cutting board in there. So underneath that pepper are little metal stakes. So they're not very big, but it would allow someone to place a food item on there and cut it with one hand, whether they use a mobility device and so they have to hold their maybe walker or cane and then cut with one hand, or if they have had a stroke, or I even think of if somebody has lower vision, being able to cut a food item and maybe they have a very limited field of vision, then they can look at where they're cutting, and not have to worry about where their hand is as well, holding the food item because it's already held in place via the stakes. So different ways that it can be used, but mainly for one-handed cooking and meal prep. A pan stabilizer can be another way we can make it easier for someone to cook one-handed, so that way when you stir, it doesn't move around the pan as much. That automatic stir, I was thinking of reducing the energy it would take for someone um, to have to watch their food a little bit as often. I'm not saying that I create a caution out in the community that you obviously don't want to leave it and not check it. But if somebody has like COPD or something like that, it might reduce the number of trips, maybe a quarter of the way that they have to take to go check on their food that's on the stove. So, and then also if maybe somebody kind of forgets that they're cooking something or they multitask a lot, that might prevent a fire hazard a little bit. It's not going to save it completely, but might be an option. And then there's different openers out there. So there's electric can openers, or there's now jar openers that kind of cinch around the jar and tighten to whatever jar it is. Otherwise, there's handheld openers because sometimes that handles the can and the jar, but then people struggle with bottles. So a lot of times there are ones out there that have like the different ones, that one that is $4 um, that can do like a bottle, like a pill bottle or a milk carton bottle. And then the one that's $17, there's ones that are handheld like that with teeth, or there's also ones that they have ones that can go underneath someone's cabinet. Like you can install it underneath your cabinet and then put the bottle up underneath it and kind of put it through the teeth to kind of open a bottle or a jar. And then more for mealtime. These nosy cups can be helpful. As a caregiver, sometimes we'll use them when somebody has either limited range of motion in their neck or maybe just their posture is more forward, where then it is kind of difficult for us to give them an adequate drink because then a normal cup would kind of stop at their nose. But this kind of allows us to give them a drink a little bit easier. Um, Another way we can kind of use that is if somebody can't move their arm as much, then they might be able to compensate with their neck to kind of lift their cup up and take a drink without, again, the cup kind of limiting how much they can do. There are weighted utensils out there or even just built up handles. So that one, a lot of times the black handles, if they have like certain ribs in them, you can kind of tell if they're weighted or not. But a lot of times they'll come as bendable. So if they have a little bit of a twist right before the fork or the spoon, then usually you can tell if it's bendable or not. So that allows someone, again, either might have some neck range of motion limitations so that they can bring their food to their mouth easier, or maybe their arms aren't as strong, and so that decreases the distance they have to go to bring their food to their mouth, or if they don't have the ability to turn their wrist towards their mouth give them more independence with feeding themselves at the pace that they maybe want. Um, it can, like the weighted ones, can be used for helping those that experience tremors, but sometimes it also makes the tremors worse. So sometimes people will try to eat with those and they'll try to counteract the weight of the utensil and also control their tremor. And so then it sometimes makes it worse. So then we'll just try maybe just built up handle utensils with the foam tubing that's there. So that's pretty much just kind of, it looks like a pool noodle. They come in big, long tubes, and you kind of cut them to fit the item that you're putting it over, whether it be uh, a writing utensil or this one has a razor. Some people I've seen use them for the nail clippers on the top part in case somebody has arthritis in their thumb to create less of a load through your thumb as you're cutting your nails. And then it can be used for food utensils as well. Otherwise, if somebody has very, very limited grasp in their hand, we can use that universal cuff. So that can be strapped over their knuckles. And then you can slide items like a writing utensil or silverware to kind of allow them to still use their dominant arm to feed themselves or to write, things like that, just using big arm movements instead of using the more fine wrist and hand movements. I usually offer like an equipment loan closet list out to like my community settings, but otherwise, a lot of places that will also have equipment other than Easter seals would be like local churches might have equipment loan closets. Sometimes a local Lions or Legion Hall will have them or like a Goodwill, Salvation Army. Some of those thrift stores that have donation-based programs will sometimes keep medical equipment closets that they loan out, or they might just sell equipment that has been donated. And finally, Iowa Compass is a website that has a list of equipment loan closets, and that's the kind of list that I give out in the community. So if anybody ever needs to, look up if there's an equipment loan closet near you, then that's the website I use for that. And you can kind of use your zip code to kind of find the nearest one to you. But some other things that are in my bag that I kind of share in the videos are some washcloth mitts. So this would allow someone to put their bar of soap or just soap in general into their hand or into that little slot in the washcloth mitt and then strap it around their hand. So let's say they can't really pinch or grasp to hold a bar of soap or to hold a washcloth to wash themselves, then this would just strap it to their hand so that they could do it just with bigger body movements. Um, or if somebody drops their bar of soap or their washcloth a lot and they're kind of scared they might fall to grab that, then this might be an option for them too. The lotion applicator is similar to a long-handled sponge, but it would just help with applying lotion because it has like a rubber head to it that's a little bit softer so that somebody could apply lotion to their back or their lower legs with a little bit more ease and maybe independently if they struggle with mobility down there. And then the pill organizers that I have donated, they don't have an AM versus a PM box. So somebody would either have to get two boxes for one for AM, one for PM, or they would maybe they only have pills once a day. So that maybe this might work for them to just have one. But you can set up to four alarms on it. So then it kind of does a little beep for a little while to kind of remind someone that they need to take their pills. Otherwise, if it's just that they need the reminder, maybe they don't need them set up in a pill calendar or whatever, then there are either talking pill reminders or sometimes we'll just set a reoccurring alarm on someone's phone. And especially if they have like a smartphone, then we can just set up a reoccurring alarm at a certain time of day that would go off every day. And then if we get to the point where someone struggles with like managing their medications safely and they have a POA or someone that can help them with that, um, given that they've kind of shown they're not sound of mind to do it, we don't want to just take over someone's pills and lock them up. But if we get to that point, then there are lockable pill dispensers out there with a timer so that when you set them up, it only opens it at a certain time and gives them the pills at that time. So then they can take them. And then I'm assuming it kind of closes after a while so that if they did miss them, they don't take them too late. Otherwise, there's magnification for like a medicine bottle too. So if somebody maybe they have low vision, but they still want to set up their pills themselves, then maybe they could use this or lower vision, not like maybe legally blind, but just to kind of see their prescription easier and they can snap it on each of the pill bottles to set up their pills for the week. Um, Obviously, we still kind of tell people, okay, we're going to check and check again to make sure that we did it correctly. But so that could help. And it has a light in it as well, which might be helpful. There are adaptive writing utensils or grips out there. There's so many options now for like pencil grips, but there's just big pens that are out there. Otherwise, there's ones with different handles. So like a quill pen, you'd put like your middle finger in that little swoop or horseshoe part of the pen and kind of use that to control um, the movement of the pen. So sometimes that can be helpful in the case of like Parkinson's or tremors to kind of use the whole hand versus there's finer movements that might be harder to control with that extra movement of the tremor. Ring pens are kind of a similar setup as the quill pens. Um, and then there's different silicone and like rubber grips too to just build up the handle maybe or allow someone to not have to use as much force in their fingers. Or there's a steady right pen. So that like comes with a pen and then allows someone to kind of do more kind of a sideways grasp to use their fingers and their thumb. And then for adaptive game night, I put an automatic shuffler in here. There's different card holders out there. I kind of show the plastic card holder in a video. Sometimes the slots are a little bit bigger than maybe a regular card would be, which would allow it to kind of angle for someone to see it. Um, but there are like card holders out there that I've seen in the community where people just have like a CD with a button through it in fabric. And so that's what that's a picture of. And I've heard that they're like sold on Etsy. So maybe if that's helpful to someone for game night, but maybe doesn't show as much of an impairment of someone, then it might be kind of fun to have different patterns or things on it. Otherwise, there's large print cards for people that might have lower vision, or there's jumbo sized cards that would not only have the bigger print, but it would also be bigger for someone that might not be able to hold the small cards as easily. These are a couple more of the magnifiers that are out there. Um, Whether hands-free or not. And then some of the ones on the right are more for like reading or crafts that would also be hands-free. The one in the middle, on the right, that one would just slide into a book. So let's say you have your book open, that would slide into it to kind of l- make the text bigger, but your hand and your thumb are already there to open the book, so it kind of holds it in place without having to, hold a magnifying glass and hold the book at the same time. So might be a little bit easier for someone. Then there's different lights out there. There's clip lights that kind of just clip onto a book or a bed frame or whatever. The hug lights are also very helpful if somebody's reading, but they don't want to, hold a light up. Um, and then that plug-in light would be for like motion sensor. So if somebody's walking to the bathroom in the night, something like that to kind of guide their path and give them the lighting that they need without having a bunch of lights on during the night. Um, Sometimes if we have individuals with uh, maybe some memory difficulties, then if their caregivers are noticing that they're struggling to find their way to the bathroom and it's becoming an issue of like falls and safety, then sometimes we can use glow in the dark tape to like to the path of the bathroom from their bedroom. I know not everybody wants to put down tape in their home, but it might prevent a fall or create uh, less time and stress for a caregiver, maybe to make sure that that loved one can get to the bathroom safely in the night in case they do it themselves when they're maybe not supposed to, or things like that. Um, and the touch lamp would just be an easy way for someone to turn on a light in case they want it. Maybe they don't have the dexterity in their hands or their fingers to kind of get a lamp, or maybe it's just easier in the night to tap that for a little bit of light to find their way to the bathroom or just get a drink of water, whatever. This is for more like a road trip or out in the community. So there are key holders, excuse me. I show in the video how this works and how to set it up. Um, Otherwise, for like more the car, because I know that's also a big thing. Um, as somebody's like headed home from the hospital, is getting in and out of their really small car, or maybe getting in and out of their really tall truck or SUV. Um, there are car handles out there that go right into the door hinge. So that would be more for standing up um, from a low chair, maybe in a car. That wouldn't really help you get your legs in and out because it would kind of come out of that hinge. But there are car transfer straps that I kind of show in a video as well. I didn't install them per se, but I kind of show you what they do, and then here are the pictures kind of for them. So you can put them on the seat in front of them if you put somebody in the back seat. But I know a lot of people put their loved one in the front seat so that they can move the seat up and down and allow enough room for their feet to get in and out. So in that case, you could put it on the window like it's pictured here. It would have to be really tight so it doesn't slide around, but it might give them enough momentum to get their feet out of the car. And then that car swivel seat cushion is just something that's out on the market, so I put it in here. But a lot of times, if people struggle with kind of just moving their hips, especially with the contour of the seats kind of stopping them, sometimes we'll just put a grocery bag or something that's less friction underneath their bottom when they're sitting down, or even like a silk pillowcase to help them turn their hips a little bit easier. These are just a couple other options. I kind of um, show up close what this oven hook looks like as well in a video with like the cooking items. So that would just help someone grab an oven rack and pull it out and grab the items without having to reach down as far to grab with both hands, maybe. And then there's also just a couple low vision things like a jumbo remote or a jumbo universal keyboard to kind of decrease or increase the contrast of the text that's given so that somebody with lower vision might be able to still be independent with their technology and their leisure items. So, thank you so much for watching this video, though, and I hope it was super helpful. I am again graduating in May, so if you need kind of questions or things like that, my Gmail is almost the same as my school email, where it's jessie.woodyard@gmail.com instead of at drake.com. So if you do have any concerns, I can try to find an answer for those, but I would direct you to kind of call Easter Seals Assistive Technology first, or maybe Aging Resources, to kind of get directed in the right way for some of this equipment too, because they would know who to connect you to, maybe for funding and things like that as well, where maybe I might not know as much about that per se versus the equipment itself. So I hope you find it helpful. Please watch the rest of the playlist if you want to see demonstrations of this equipment, because sometimes just seeing a picture of it doesn't really show the whole picture. So seeing somebody actually do it and like talk through what steps you need to do can be also very helpful. So feel free to watch those, and thank you so much.